Alright guys, so just a little update here on my bike. I'm going to try to do this, make this quick. So long story short, basically I watched a video that Jeff at Slavens Racing put out on basically how to make your TPI 250 or 300 Husky or KTM idle better, or idle higher, because really you can't adjust the idle. I have two throttle bodies here. That's an old one off a 250 SXF. I'll talk about that in a second. But this is the throttle body. This is how you'd be looking at it on the bike, I believe. That's the airbox side right here. That's the intake here. This is the choke. And that is an actual air screw, which KTM calls an idle screw. And you got to turn it counterclockwise out, which is also counterintuitive, to increase your idle. And basically just adds more air. And that's how you increase your idle. But the problem with that, it might work for, once your bike's running. Yes, it does increase your idle. It leans your bike out and it makes your bike, a lean bike is a very hard bike to start. So that's the problem. And I actually tested that and it's true. Took my bike, the bike's a little dirty still, but it took the bike about, I don't know, I had to hold the button for a good second or so before it fired. You couldn't even press it and release it before it was started. It's just crazy how fast it would start. So basically the reason this is coming up, my bike idled just fine. It never had an issue, so I didn't really think I was going to do anything, ever going to mess with this, because I'd actually seen this video a while ago. And I put this recluse clutch in, and with my bike in gear, it'll idle for maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and it sputters out. Just because there's that slight extra amount of drag, even though technically the clutch is disengaged when it's like that, I don't know. It's supposed to be able to idle in gear. That's all I know. And I want it to be able to idle in gear. I really don't need it for the race, but I just want it to run just like all the other bikes I had. So I watched this video again and I said, all right, I'm going to try this. And basically, long story short, there is a screw. This is the screw. I don't know what kind of screw this is called. It's basically just like this, and it has an Allen head on one side. And it sits right in there like that. And I hope the camera's focusing on this and you can see, but it sits right there like that. And it basically puts pressure on this throttle plate and moves it up and down. And KTM selects a certain spot that they like, which is an extremely low idle. And they basically use this permanent thread locker on this thing, and it's just permanently in there. It's very hard to access. The only way to access is through this tiny little hole right in there. I hope you can see. And that's the only way to get to it, so the only things you can use are these. Now Jeff put a video out. He pulled this little bolt out. It looked like it was an Allen head. This one's a little beat up. I'll explain that in a second. But then he put an update out and said, no, it is not a Allen, it is a torx. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the torx bits. It is a T10 torx bit, and this is where I was a little confused, because when I tested and I went and felt up here with a few different items, a few different tools, and I did a 2.5 millimeter, which actually fit nice and snug. That was the first one I tried. Felt like I got it right away. Then I tried a 3 millimeter, didn't fit at all. Tried a T10 torx, because guys, remember, this was on the bike, and I actually had to loosen both clamps on both sides, and you twist it so you can kind of access it with these Allen keys, but you can't really see in there, and it's very dark even if you could. So I couldn't tell what it was, and just from looking at Jeff's video, it looked like an Allen key, so that's kind of why I tried this one first. But after trying a few different ones, I did a T10, a T15. The T10 did fit in there, but it had a tiny bit of play. The 2.5 millimeter hex or Allen fit nice and tight and snug. And I don't know, that's what I thought was the right one. I actually got it to turn. I used a little bit of a heat from this mini torch, which is the one thing you have to be super, super careful on, guys. Like, I'm telling you gotta watch Jeff's videos, guys. He's gonna release one on Monday or Tuesday this week. I would suggest watching all of his stuff before you do anything to your bike after watching my video. I am not a professional. Jeff is a professional mechanic. I am a weekend, warrior mechanic, garage mechanic. So I just like to work on all my stuff myself. So a little bit of knowledge, nowhere near what Jeff has. So watch all his stuff first. This is where I got all the ideas for this anyways. So But that thing is in there extremely tight. Never dealt with anything like that before, and just the fact that you don't have any room to work with, and then this thing, you know, you're going to leave this on the bike, and it's just, there's not much space, there's not much room to wiggle around. You got to take the pipe off the bike to get any access really at all. But it's hard, to say the least. And so honestly, guys, if you don't really have some mechanical knowledge, I would not recommend to even try to do this, because you are going to strip this out. And I would not use any kind of socket wrench type Allen bit. You know, I don't know, we'll see what Jeff says, but you really got to get the heat on there properly, because if you don't, that thread locker is just going to keep that bolt locked in place, and you're going to twist and turn. And if you have too much leverage, like a socket wrench or something, that leverage is what's going to strip. A 2.5 millimeter Allen or T10 Torx, those are tiny heads. There's not much, you know, material in there, and you can strip it very easily, even though it is a hard bolt. But so just like I said, you got to be really careful. The heat is the most important part. Without the heat, do not even attempt it. You will not succeed. I can guarantee you that. That is a permanent thread locker. It is not a temporary like the blue or anything. It is permanent. So KTM clearly didn't want anybody messing with this, and that's the other side of this story. Is I don't know why. The only thing I can think of, guys, is, you know, according to Jeff, this thing, it just makes no sense to do that, to lean your bike out and everything the way every other bike does it. The 4 strokes, this is a 4-stroke throttle body. They have a throttle screw where you turn the throttle screw in or out and raise your throttle plate. And it's just, that's the normal way to do it. So I'm assuming it has, you know, this is a 2-stroke, and they obviously pollute a lot more than a 4-stroke. I'm assuming it has something to do with the emissions. So, you know, I'll probably never know, but I'm assuming that's why they did this, and this kind of joker setup, according to Jeff, it's not the right way to do it. So this is the way to bypass it. It's not easy, guys. This is not a, like I said, getting this little, that little screw out of there, once I'd screwed it up and stripped it, this one, I mean, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. My right arm is just sore. I had to basically put a flathead screwdriver into it, a real strong flathead that was small enough to fit through that hole. And I took this off the bench, you know, off the bike, I mean, put it on the bench. I made sure, because if you lay it like this, you're hitting on the choke, which you could snap that, because I'm going to be hammering. So I made sure I supported it with something right underneath there, and with some wood, put the whole thing on some wood, put that thing in there, and just very precise hammering until I started getting a little bit of a flathead bit on the top of my screw here. And then just maybe 30 minutes of just real precise hammering, guys. It was a lot. It was painstaking. I did not think I was going to get it, because I would move the bolt a couple millimeter turn, and then the next time I went to turn, it would just keep popping right out. So I really didn't think I was going to get it, but I finally got it. But man, that was a job. So Jeff says he's going to put out a video on the do's and don'ts of how to get that screw out. So definitely watch that, because I definitely did something that is on his don't list. And like I said, he says he's adamant it's a T10 Torx. The 2.5 Allen's what I ended up using. That's most likely why I'd stripped out. So I don't know, just the T10 didn't feel like it fit properly. But and it looked like an Allen from what I could see. I just didn't have a great view of it. But all right, long story short, let's get back to it. Basically, there's 2 options you can do to, once you get the screw out. Go to Jeff's website, slavensracing.com. I'm gonna put the link right here in the video. He sells something very similar to this. He made it. It doesn't have this little red thing that looks like factory KTM. It has just a you know, some kind of square head or something like that to make it easy to turn. But it's got the whole setup, the turn piece, the bolt, the spring, the washer, everything, and just screws right in, and you're good to go from there. My method, I happen to have one of these extra throttle bodies off of a 2016 KTM 250 SXF, and I actually was hoping that the entire thing would just plug and play, take it out and plug it in. Not the case. The thread pitch on this, the one out of the 250 SXF, is a very, very fine thread pitch. I have no idea what it is, but a lot finer than what you need. And the one you need is actually an M5 by 0.8. And the length of the bolt is about 60 millimeters. That's the one you're going to need. This is actually a 50 millimeter. I went to all my local hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware. None of them had more than 50mm length. I was able to find online on eBay, I believe, from China, of course, but you get like a 4-pack of the 60mm ones. I think it was like $7.50 or something, less than $10, and I think it was free shipping. You do have to wait a little while if it's from China, though. But it did say it was stainless steel, and this isn't a very, this isn't, it is important, but there's not much stress on it, so I can't imagine that these Chinese bolts are bad for this. But so you can buy the bolt off eBay or any other website, I'm sure. And this is what I took off of the throttle body. You can buy this whole assembly here, these pieces together. It comes as one part. I went to Rocky Mountain ATV, just checked their OEM parts, and this was $19.65, I think. And you get free shipping, obviously, if you buy enough stuff from them. And the only things you really need off of it is the spring, the little washer, and this red piece. And I like leaving my bikes, I don't know, I like leaving them stock so they look stock. So that's why I like this, setup, and I figured I could do this on my own for cheap and not have to buy that part off of Jeff's website. I don't know, that's the kind of person I am. I don't like paying for things. I like doing it myself. That's the great part about YouTube. But guys, most of you, all of you really should just go to Jeff's website and buy that thing. Don't do what I do. But if you want to, go make sure you buy the right length. 60mm is what you need. And make sure you get the hex head and not the Allen type head, because the hex head is what fits right in here. Fits in perfect. The next piece that goes on is this little washer. And since I have a shorter bolt, 10mm too short, I actually needed to cut a little bit of my spring. This was my spring before, and I had to cut a little bit of this off in order to give myself enough adjustment. So otherwise I was too short and I would have had to wait. And again, I'm just doing this just because I have a race tomorrow morning, and I was too far into this to back out. So I had to figure out a way to do this. So that's why I cut this little spring. But I've actually tested this. I'll pause the video here and screw it all the way in, but it works. I might even just keep it. I might not even need to order that new spring. But if you guys, I would recommend not cutting that spring and just ordering the right size bolt, which is, I'm not sure. It could be 55mm. I think it's 60mm is going to be the perfect size. 60mm is not going to hurt anything. And it's getting tight there. That's why it's falling there. But so it's hitting my thing. I still have some slack in my spring. It's hitting the throttle plate or whatever it's called, and it's moving it up and down right here. So sorry that I only have one hand, but and I still have a little bit of play, and it's moved quite a bit, so I'm sure that this is going to work for me, at least for tomorrow. But that's how you do it, guys. Just remember, watch all those videos from Jeff, and again, thanks Jeff for putting all that stuff out. That's why the only reason I'm even able to do this is because he did this. Put this video out on YouTube, and I'm going to put all the links to the part that he sells and his videos, and yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you really adjust that thing. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, you'll see in his video, he actually takes this one and he closes it all the way off, and then just almost like 1/8 of a turn out, just to barely open that air passage. So I would, I don't know, but play around with it a little bit. But he basically closes that air passage off because you're adjusting your idle now with the throttle, with fuel instead of air down here. So that's kind of the proper way to do it, and I'm sure it does pollute a little bit more, and that's why KTM didn't want to do it this way. But hey, this is the right way to do it, and I need to do it because my bike doesn't idle anymore in gear with my Recluse, so I wanted to do this right way. And just so you know, I was able to get the idle turned up. I don't know if I covered this, but where this flathead is, that was lined up with the 2 blue dots before from the factory, the dealer, KTM, whoever sets that. I had to turn it counterclockwise 90 degrees, a quarter turn, and that was enough adjustment to get my idle high enough to where my bike did not stall while I was in gear anymore, but it did make my bike hard to start. So once I found that, I go, oh great, because I want to be able to start. I like to start in second gear with the clutch pulled in second gear. That's how I start my bikes for my races, and that's what I want to be able to do. And if my bike's not running while it's in gear, it's going to be hard to start while it's in gear. So a lot of people probably say start in neutral. I don't know, this is how I've been doing it, and I'm having some success. So but yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I usually answer them pretty quick, but I'll post all the links for everything. And good luck, guys. Just real quick, just remember that thing is Loctited in there like you never believe, because you don't have much leverage with these things. So just be careful. Do not strip that bolt. Do not strip it. If you strip it, it took me 3 hours probably to get it out. You know, to get this little tiny thing out, it took me 3 hours, and I did not think I was going to get it out, and I was freaking out because I have my race tomorrow. You know, so just be careful, and yeah, good luck, and thanks for watching. Saying if you do pull it, this line, this is the oil line, and you see there's a little bit of air up there. I actually tried to keep as much oil in that line as possible, so I've angled it up like that, but there's going to be a little air bubble in there when I put it back, and you can't run your bike with the air bubble in there. So you gotta, there's this little black thing that comes in your toolkit that KTM gives you in your manual, and there's a little wire, there's a little plug that's underneath inside your air box or underneath your electronics somewhere. You're gonna have to find it, look in your manual, just kind of play around, but there's a little black thing that comes in. You basically just plug it in, and you're gonna hear your, I don't know if the fuel pump kicks on, but basically all the electronics kick on, and you'll hear it. And basically all that does is it primes that line. KTM calls it, they call it time, T-I-M-E. You time the line, so I don't know why, I've never heard that, but you're basically priming, getting all the air out and just getting it full of oil again. So make sure you do that before you start your bike up, if you do happen to do this and take off that oil line. So